You're listening to the Minor Detail Podcast, a place where all things community, encouragement, and lifestyle come together through meaningful conversation. I'm your host, Khaila Ariel, and I'm so grateful that you chose to join me on this journey of authenticity to serve as a link that amplifies human connection in our everyday lives. Navigating life on a daily basis can be difficult, but I am confident that together we'll be our own answer to life's minor little details that come our way. Sit back and enjoy today's episode, purposely curated just for you. Hey y'all, and welcome back to another episode of the Minor Detail Podcast. I'm your host, Khaila Ariel, and I am so grateful that you are tuning into today's episode. I am also beyond ready for y'all to listen to this conversation, okay? Because I know it would be an impactful one for sure. Joining us today is Tonya Rapley. You may know Tonya as the founder of financial education and lifestyle blog, My Fab Finance. However, it does not stop there. Tonya is an entrepreneur, millennial money expert, investor, art collector, influencer, speaker, and mother. Tonya, thank you so much for joining the show.
Thank you. Thank you. You got it right. Like you got it all the way right.
I love it. I love it. Well, before we dive in, I just like to ask all of my guests, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling love. Today actually is my son's fourth birthday. And so just feeling love and like honor of being like his mom for the past 4 years and in awe. In awe. So and then being around my family. We're going into the holidays. So I came to spend time with my family. So it's really special.
Number one, thank you for having this conversation with me on your son's birthday. That I feel honored. I appreciate that. Also, happy birthday to him.
Thank you.
I like appreciate all the mothers. I'm not a mother. I think I just said this on a previous episode, and I'm day in day out just always admiring y'all's strength. And I don't even know if that's the right word, but just I mean, it's not an option, but just willingness to show up and be a parent
Uh,
every day. You know what I mean? That's major.
Man, yeah, he's it. He's it. I only got room for one, because it definitely. I have so being a mother, I have so much respect for my mother and all the other mothers I know because it really is a job that you don't get any time off from. Even physically, if you're not in the presence of your children, mentally, you're always thinking about your children. And so it's really no time off. And so yeah, shout out to all the moms and yeah, pat on my back. We made it to 4 years. I'm like, oh my gosh. I remember bringing him from the hospital. And I was like, if we could just make it to year one, like I gotta keep this person alive. If we could just make it to year one, I think we're good. And here we are.
That is hilarious. So that and also interesting. You said you've done this for 4 years. That is a huge moment for you. You know, you got through that year one. What has it like reflecting on your journey so far and even like thinking back to before motherhood? How was that transition or like how has that been for you thus far?
You know, the transition to motherhood, I think that I underestimated it, and I think that, like, that's one of the things I'm learning is not to underestimate transitions. Like, right now, I'm also going through a divorce, and I think I underestimated the transition. Just like I underestimated the transition into motherhood. I'm also transitioning my business, and so I don't wanna underestimate that, but also, understand that the lessons and the obstacles that occur, like initiation into the next phase of the journey. And so, yeah, I'm intentional, and I was intentional about having my son and how I had him, but I'd still like, I feel like sometimes we feel like because we planned everything, that it's gonna go smooth and it's gonna go easy, and I've learned that just because you plan everything does not mean it's going to necessarily be easy. It makes it easier, but I definitely underestimated the transition into motherhood.
No, that's major and that's a word. Also, congratulations on the many transitions that you're experiencing because you seem to be carrying them so well and so gracefully.
Thank you. I appreciate that because a lot of times when people say, like, I'm going to divorce, people are like, I'm so sorry. It's like, nah, be glad. Be glad that I like it, dropped that weight and had the courage to be like, you know what, I'm good. Let me move on to do something else. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Totally. So I do want to rewind just a little bit, or maybe a lot of it. I do want to talk about how you kind of got your start. You know, if we rewind a bit to the beginning of like My Fab Finance, what motivated you to begin that part of your life?
So, my Fat Finance started as a result of me starting my own financial journey. And I became motivated to do it because I remember when I was starting, everybody was giving me books by Susie Orman. And I was like, there got to be people of color that I can identify with. And I did get a book from called Girl Get Your Money Straight by Glenda Bridgeforth. And that was phenomenal that I received that book. But I also felt like, where are the books from the millennials and people who look like me talking about money? Because I graduated from college in 2008, which was like the height, 2007. In 2008, right after that was the height of the recession. And I was like, yeah, they're writing books from their perspective and not from the perspective of someone who's navigated through through a recession. Even so far to the point, and just bringing that to the current time, we are on the brink of a recession now. And I feel like, as a financial educator, and this is just being honest, I am so far removed from the person I was with the last recession that I don't necessarily feel like I'm the best person to educate people through it. And I think that it's important as a financial educator to be responsible and understand when you move to different phases of your journey and allow people who are in those phases and speak to those phases to dominate those spaces. Because at that time, I needed someone who had been through what I had been through to explain how to crawl out of that. And I didn't have it, so I created it.
I love that you mentioned that at that time you hadn't, like, it was the first time you were experiencing that basically. And now, fast forwarding to today's day, obviously, like you mentioned, of course, we are on the brink of recession, if not already in it a little bit. Our feet
Hmm.
are wet for sure. Do you feel like you're experiencing almost like similar patterns within our economy, or do you feel like you can predict in some ways, the direction that we could be headed?
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't consider myself to be an economist. And also, like when I experienced the first recession, I was a broke college student. Like I had just graduated from college. Like last year, I made my first million in a year. So it's very different for me, particularly at how I'm experiencing and how I was able to plan and prepare for it. This time, I prepared. I have money in savings. I began pivoting my business. I began trying to get ahead of it instead of waiting for it to happen. But I do think that what was unique about this one in comparison to the last one is that we had a pandemic that preceded this. As a result of that pandemic, student loans are on hold and they've been extended through June 30th. Was PPP money that was circulated. There was a lot of money in the economy. People were buying like luxury goods with their PPP money, and so I think that the setup for this was slightly different. And I hope that as a result, people have built reserves up more than they did previously. And I hope that previously it was also because there were a lot of people who were in bad mortgage products. There are still people who are in bad poor products, but not to the extent that it was that caused the last recession. So I think that we're in a better space as a society, but I also don't want to be ignorant to the fact that there were some people who flourished in the pandemic and there were some people who are still recovering from it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I do think that there's also a lot of, what would you say, like angst or anxiety around what could be happening next. I think that
Yes.
even experiencing as it, like this would be my first time technically, because during the previous recession, I was obviously a child, or, I was here, but my parents, they were the ones that were responsible. And so now
Mhm.
I'm witnessing for myself. Like I just actually just today, right before this call, got a letter from my apartment about renewal because I'm like almost at that 60-day window and they've increased my rent $200. And I'm like, inflation. Okay. I thought we were changing directions. I thought we were going into a recession and like should be coming down. And I'm like, what is happening? Right. And so there's also
Yeah.
this level of confusion too, because it's like we're supposed to be preparing, but we're not really educated. We don't know what's going on. So I guess like at a high level, what would you say would kind of be like practical ways for either educating yourself about what's going on, preparing? You mentioned before like having reserves built up, but outside of those
Mhm.
things, for example, what are some other ways that we can prepare?
Yeah, cut back on spending. Cut back on spending and start looking for ways to cut your bills. Remove unnecessary bills. Start like accommodating, like look for that lifestyle creep, the things that have creeped into your life and caused you to spend more money. Pay things off if you have it. I mean, even cell phone plans. Like I bought my phone out and everything else so I could decrease. I had the money now. So I was like, let me buy my phone and everything else. And like I'm inspired, encouraging other people to do the same because sometimes you might pay an additional $30, $40 a month for phone fees. And so it's just like decrease your expenses right now while you can before you have to. That way you can use that extra money to be saving and put money aside and reduce your overhead in case you experience a significant loss of income. So I'd say definitely that, and then be looking for ways to recession proof your business or yourself. And so, I mean, for me, like I am revamping my entire business strategy, and I started focusing on, okay, who's a recession proof client. So I am switching my business into like who we work with and who we work for, and like get ahead if you can. Maybe even think about transitioning jobs, transition to a job that's more recession friendly, like tech jobs and business and corporate jobs. Like those are going to be ones that might get affected by the recession. But, maybe the health care industry or something like that, if you have the opportunity to go into something like that, then consider that.
If we were, because you mentioned earlier when you were talking about how you got your start in MyFab Finance and like where you were in your life, being a broke college student or coming out of college, so many people can resonate with that. I have had my own experiences where I'm like, girl, you need to get it together. Like it literally took, I don't know, it was like Chase took my savings account away or something like that. Like I had overdrawn one too many times and they were like, yeah, we're putting you on
Did,
punishment for a month or
you transferred too many times into your
yes,
checking account, and they're like,
yes.
you're using this as a checking account. Let's call it what it is and stop giving you
Yeah,
interest on this.
exactly.
Yes.
And so I went into the branch. I was like, look, this is my first, I don't know. I just felt like so scolded and like reprimanded. I physically walked into the branch and was like, listen, this has never happened to me before. I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. Like literally, that was my cry for help because I was not only embarrassed, but I was just like ashamed that I had let it get to that point to where I just was not keeping track of my finances. And so something like you mentioned earlier, having people in this space or in this industry that look like you is so important. Because I went into the branch and definitely talked to a white man, and thankfully he was really helpful. Sat me down, helped me draw up a budget, helped me create a plan for like paying off debt. But at a high level, could you walk us through like what your process is for getting women or helping getting women get their finances in order?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first thing is like we sit down and we understand what the financial goals are. So even when we're doing our MyFat Finance boot camp, I'm sitting down and we're determining what your financial goals are. Then based on what your goals are, we can look at your finances from the lens of that. Like, okay, if your goal is to buy a house, let's look at your finances from the perspective of is this person home buyer ready based on the habits that are being told to us by their bank account and their credit history. And then we start working, we list everything out and we start analyzing everything. We start analyzing your bank account, your spending, your investment accounts, your credit score, like those main three things. And we create a plan from there based on where you want to go. So maybe it is, okay, we got to figure out how to free some more money up in your budget, or we have to figure out how you can bring more income in, or we need to get your credit together. So we figure out based on what their goals are, what the most important things are, and then we create an action plan from there that they can implement. And with my Fab Finance, and anytime I'm working with a client, like I don't believe in deprivation as a financial freedom strategy. And so we're going to figure out like what are things that we can do slowly. Like we're not going to aggressively like make a lot of switches because I feel like then people are less likely to want to remain with it unless you're just that type of person who likes pain. But for the most part, people are like, you know what, this is too hard. I'm done with it. I want people to back in easily, back themselves into building up to more aggressive measures.
I love that approach too, because I think, let's be honest, like most of the financial experts, quote unquote, out there they take a really aggressive approach. And I think that that works for some people. But when you have such an emotional, and this could be good or bad, I think it's subjective, but when you have such an emotional tie to money and like your lifestyle and things, like it really does take a process. Like it's a process and it takes time
Hmm.
to kind of like get yourself together and really just come to terms with like, okay, this is the right way to do it. I need to make better choices. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
I've had that moment one too many times, just being honest. I feel like I don't want to say I never learned, but there's always a moment where I can whip myself back into shape. And I also think this is something that I am was really excited to talk to you about as well, because I think that another common experience a lot of women go through in particular, again, myself included, is learning not to depend on others when it comes to their finances. I think that's major. So in your experience working with thousands of women, have you noticed this as well? That
Absolutely, absolutely, Kyla. And I just want to say, like, even me as a financial educator, like, I had to take my own advice. sometimes I'm like, "Ooh, girl, you went a little too hard on vacation," or yes, like you did a little much. Maybe you should have bought that bottle. Like I honestly have to I had to pull myself back sometime, and I became a financial educator not because managing money came easy to me, but because managing money wasn't easy for me. And so I just want to say that, like, even I have to get back on the wheel. Even I have to get back on the wagon. Sometimes you get comfortable and things are good, and then you develop these habits based out of comfort without understanding, like, those habits and comfort aren't going to take you through the harder times. And so sometimes it's easier to just maintain those habits from the harder times so that it's less adjustment, but still learning how to enjoy yourself and enjoy your work and your money in the process. So, yes, absolutely. And when it comes to women and like depending on others, I feel like our society like has bred that into us even as young girls. You think I don't watch Disney movies because I feel like Disney movies are all filled with like similar tropes. It's like the damsel in distress, the prince that comes in and saves the day. So the evil, someone is evil in their life and everything else. And I just don't enjoy the narratives that they paint. Even though I'm invested in the company, I don't enjoy them, and I think that affects women more than they realize it does. And then we become grown women who are playing into those archetypes, or the narrative that Disney constructed in us. And not just Disney, I'm talking society and everything else, but Disney is a prime example. But I'm a firm believer that a man is not a financial plan. And I learned that in my first marriage. I'm getting a divorce in my second marriage. First marriage lasted all but like 2 months. But one of the things I did learn was like, when I was ready to leave, I could leave because I had my own money. And my mom told me that. My mom was like, always have your own because you just never know. She had friends who like depended on their husbands, and then the husband came home and didn't love them anymore, or like had been cheating and started another family and decided he didn't want to be in a marriage anymore. And now the woman is struggling financially. So I always wanted to make sure that I was in a sound position financially, and I want women I work with to be in a sound position financially, because I don't want you to compromise your power for the sake of money. I don't want you to stay in a relationship that doesn't serve you for the sake of money. I don't want you to allow someone to mistreat you because of money. And so when we take money out the equation, at least you're not there because of a need or because you need someone to provide for you. You are there because you want to, and it's a lot easier to remove yourself when it's a want versus a need.
100% totally agree. And I also like, I think one question or something that I think about is like how we can begin to shift these mindsets, or like even, I mean, totally can relate when it comes to like Disney movies or music or just like entertainment in general, right? There's just a lot of like codependency on men that happens, and it's
Hmm.
it's cool to entertain once in a while, but I think when you have that moment in your own experiences, where you just feel empowered because you do have your own, or you do work for your own, and you don't have to depend on someone else. There's just something like I mentioned before, just something very powerful about that. But do you have to work with women to help them shift that mindset, or do you have specific strategies around that?
I mean, sometimes they shift it, sometimes God shifts it for them. Like, and both are effective. Both are effective. One probably is less painful than when God's like, okay, well, you got some things have to change. This is why. First, when you decide, like, I'm gonna get ahead of this and create some changes, I think that encouraging one another, encouraging our friends, and like being honest and transparent about our experiences is really important. I think that sharing our lived stories and experiences is also important, because if we share, like, I was in this relationship and this person like took like I relied on them for everything, and when they were no longer in my life, like I had no idea how I was going to sustain myself. We got to share those stories, because that needs to be shared to the young woman or the woman who is currently in that position and doesn't think that their situation can change. So I think that that's a way to change it. And we are kind of in like the bad bitch boss bitch era, so more and more women are like owning their power and like really standing up on their own. So I do see the tide changing. I think that previous generations were different from our generation. And I feel like our generation is changing that cycle to the point where the young girls who look at us, they don't even inspire to be taken care of by a man. They're like, no, I'm gonna have my own and he's gonna have his own and we're gonna come together. So I think it's slowly changing. But like when I think about it, we're not far removed from previous generations. Like my mom worked and my mom like earned her own money, but like my grandmother didn't. And like I'm two generations removed from that. and my son's gonna be, 3 generations removed from that. My son, like, and go and so forth. So I think that we are changing and evolving. Um, it's something we gotta attack on different fronts.
No, for sure. And I love that you mentioned I have my money, you have your money, and we come together. Because I also think that there's this very common misconception by men that our generation independent, we don't need a man. And I'm like, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying we
No.
don't have to depend on a man. But if it's
Yes.
like it's up to our discretion, basically. You know what I mean? Like how we want to move forward. We now have
Like,
a say.
yeah. And you should be glad that I'm here because I wanna be, not because I gotta be. Like, I'm here because I want to be, not because you provide something for me that is a requirement for me, so I gotta be here. Like, no, I'm here because I wanna be.
So I want to talk debt for a moment
Mhm,
because I am interested on your perspective. I am a living, breathing adult, solo, figuring this thing out. And I feel like we live in a society where being in debt, overspending, not having a budget, kind of going with the flow has been normalized. And it could be this way, could have been this way for a while. Consumerism is obviously super huge in America,
mhm.
from social to what we care about to what we see again on TV and entertainment. And it's something that I'm coming to like grab or grips with and just in my own personal life. And I'm like, why? Like, why aren't
Mhm.
these things a priority? Or, why weren't we educated about these things? But specifically in the Black community, like we aren't really equipped to combat these things either. What is your point of view on prioritizing paying off debt as like a first step towards financial freedom?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, debt is American is like apple pie at this point. Like, it's just something that we do in our society. But I'm not anti-debt. I think that it's important to understand how to leverage debt. Debt does serve a purpose sometimes in our lives, whether, like I purchased a real estate an investment property last year and there were certain things I had to buy. And before I could refinance, I was not going to utilize my liquid cash for that. I put it on a credit card so that I could just go ahead and still have my liquid cash available to me. And when I refinance, I could pay those things off with the cash we pulled out. So there's a way that you can leverage debt for good. I think it is when you're like using debt to afford a lifestyle that you really can't afford. That's when it becomes a problem. Because sometimes people need a little help in between. But if you're consistently having to rely on your credit cards to meet your bare essentials, then that's when you have to ask, like, there is a difference between my actual life and my ideal life, and I need to go ahead and figure that out. When it comes to aggressively paying down debt, I believe that people should prioritize savings before aggressively paying down debt because you could focus on aggressively paying down debt before we go into this recession or before this recession is felt like at a wide scale. And yeah, you debt free, but you don't have no savings. So what do you have to do now? You have to create more debt because you don't have money to be your own bank. So I'm often encouraging people to save aggressively, get to a point where you have like one, maybe 2 or 3 months of your expenses in the bank, and then we can focus on aggressively eliminating debt while we still have savings as part of our strategy. But debt, people focus on debt because it's like it's louder. It beckons our attention more. Like debt collectors are calling you. You get notifications that your credit score dropped, so it creates this panic. But really, we need to be focusing on savings. Like I'm a savings person, and then we focus on eliminating this debt.
I love to hear that because that is not what is taught out there. I'll say that. It's like if you're not paying down your credit card, if you aren't, you don't have an 850 credit score, then you're not living right. Mind you, you're totally right. There's this like super big emotional like anxious toll that's associated with debt, and that is
Yeah.
probably not the best, you know what I mean, like leading emotion, but it's also
Mhm.
interesting, and I think that it's really smart actually to prioritize savings in this time because you're right. You can aggressively pay down debt for 3 months, and that's like anywhere between five, eight, maybe $10,000 that you probably spent on paying off
Mhm.
credit card bills that could have been sitting in say at least half of that, at least, right? Could have been
That
sitting
you
in
might need if
savings.
you lose your job. Exactly. And then, the other thing is like there are people who are debt free and still aren't financially free. Debt free does not mean you're financially free. And now having money in savings doesn't necessarily mean you're financially free, but it means you're more financially secure in the event of an emergency. Like debt free don't mean financially free. And I know a lot of people out there talk about it and talk about it and talk about, oh, I'm debt free, I'm debt free, I'm debt free. People tell me, I'm like, that's good. How much have you saved? Like that's amazing. How much have you saved? Like, and I'm not saying it to be shady. I'm not saying it ought to be shady. I just want people to understand like being debt free is great. Let's be honest. Like being debt free is definitely something that most people should aspire to, and it is something that is worth celebrating. But it does not equal financial freedom, and your journey does not stop there. I'll say it like that. Like your journey is not over.
That's really interesting. And what would you describe as financial freedom, or like what does being financially free mean to you?
Financial freedom means that if you do have any debt, your assets are paying for it, or the debt is being leveraged to create more income for you, or it's there for a purpose and you have a means for paying it off. Such as, like I said, like refinancing on an investment property and paying it off. And then you do have a substantial amount of money in savings. I would say, up to a year in savings. I mean, for some people, it's even more, but a year in savings. And then you have passive income coming in that is covering your overhead. And so you're not having to actively work for your money. You have passive income that is coming in and covering your financial responsibilities so that working for you is optional.
I need to go rework my prayer.
like
I need to go
I
work
want
my
I want work to be optional, and like I mean that's I'm on the cusp of it, but I'm not financially free completely yet. I'm on the cusp of it, but for me, working still isn't optional. Working still isn't optional. I went through a divorce this year, and I took like 2.5 months off just and I didn't go as hard this year. I've definitely probably worked an average of like 3 days a week this year, and so I haven't brought in as much money in my business, which means that I haven't been like paying on things or paying things. Like been as aggressive in my investment strategy this year, my complete debt elimination strategy. I just have not been as aggressive. So for me, that highlighted a few things for me. It was like, okay, all right, you can sit down, but you're gonna feel to sit down. And the goal is to be able to sit down without feeling to sit down. That's the goal. That's what we're working on.
yeah, that's real. There's something about just also giving yourself space and opportunity to like just be, you know what I mean? Because if you need
Yeah,
that too, that is real. And I love that
absolutely.
you allowed yourself that space, because I think a lot of times people have this like go 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 mindset, and that's not healthy either. So like there's a balance.
Yes. Yes, and I had to block myself off from people like that because it's pervasive. And I felt like last year, I mean, granted, like I said, last year was my most profitable year in business, and that's phenomenal. But I just was exhausted. I was exhausted and I was like, this ain't it. This ain't it. I was talking to one of my good friends about it because then you got to hire people to help maintain that and everything else. And I was like, man, I'm taking less money home now that I made more money because I've hired people and increased my expenses versus when I was just starting and it was just me and I was making like $400,000 a year. Most of that was coming to me. So it's a lot of lessons learned. I was talking to someone, it's like, they say more money, more problems, but it's just more money, different problems. And I will take the money problems before any of them any time of day. Like I will take money problems over like financial insecurity problems any day. But that doesn't mean there's not still issues that come along with it that you have to address.
No, totally. It's so funny you mentioned that too, because I think I was on Instagram, but I saw a post about how, and I can't remember who posted it, but it was like I thought basically when I added more members to my team, I would make more money, essentially. And the assumption is
Maya, my friend Maya Elliott
yes.
posted it.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I was gonna say I know it's somebody, but yes. And so when she posted it, I was like, like I see both sides. Like I see how our mindset would be like, oh, that means more productivity. So that means more is getting done. So more money is being made. But it also means more overhead, more people you have to pay, more things that you have to, like include in your expenses or whatever. That's just like really interesting. But it's like
And they
time or
gotta
money.
make sense. They gotta make sense, and just because you're hiring people to do things in your business doesn't mean they're bringing money into your business. Like, that was the thing that I learned is, like and I really had to start assessing what I was paying people because I was like, "I'm paying this, but I'm not getting a return on this. It's freeing up time for me, but based on the way my strategy, like I'm not exactly going knocking on doors and making sales calls and using this time to make sales. Like this is not making financial sense. And you have that assumption, like, okay, I'm gonna hire up and I'm gonna bring this person in, I'm gonna bring that person in. And it doesn't always add to the bottom line. When my approach when she posted, I was like, oh, she is preaching, but that she's one of my close friends and we talk about stuff like that on a regular basis because it's real. I look at business, and if I was to ever become an employee again, I look at it differently now, having been a CEO and responsible for payroll and responsible for people. I ain't playing around on people's money no more because I don't want people playing around on my money, and it makes a big difference. So yeah, it's different problems.
I'm dying laughing over here because you said I ain't playing around on people's money no more. But like we all can think back to those times where we were not stewarding over that job or that paycheck.
Listen. I started my fat finance on somebody else's dime. Like, was
Okay.
supposed to be in there doing something else and was blogging. So, g- forgive me. Forgive me.
That is too funny, but no, and also real. And I think that all of this is just so relatable because it's like they're just things that you have to take into consideration, and they're a direct impact to your business and clearly your income.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We've been downsizing, and it's one of the things that we really had to assess what was bringing money into the business. And I got to the point where I felt like I was just working to pay people. And I was like, this ain't freedom. This is not freedom. And I had to tap into my core values, which is joy, freedom, personal growth, and relationships. And I was not feeling free. And so that's one of another reasons I decided to transition my business and the way that I do business, because I realized the functions that I like and that I don't like in my business. I did not enjoy launching. I don't necessarily enjoy launching. I love helping people. I love coaching. I love research. I love analytics. I love storytelling, but I don't necessarily enjoy launching. So like, how can I switch my business so that is more reflective of what I love doing, so that I feel freedom in the work that I'm doing? Entrepreneurship is an amazing thing, but if you're not creating a role or a business that speaks to the freedoms that you desire in life, or that allows you to live life as you desire, then you're creating another job for yourself. And for some people that's cool, but for me that wasn't okay. And so it's been a hell of a year. That's all I'm gonna say. It's been a hell of a year.
Well, listen, I feel like you've learned a lot, and that's exciting because you mentioned core values, and I think knowing your core values, whether it be like personally or like from the state of your business and what you want it to be rooted in, I think is so important because even being able to go back to that and identify like this is not in alignment. I think that that's major. So kudos to you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That's
Seriously.
my rubric. That is my rubric in which I gauge everything. Like, if I'm in a relationship, is it speaking to my joy? Is it bringing me joy? Do I feel free in this relationship? Is it allowing me to grow as a person? And am I able to experience other relationships as a result of this relationship? And how is this relationship impactful to the relationships that I value? So that is my rubric.
I love it. And speaking of businesses, you have your hands in some things. We kind of talked about it in your introduction, but you are doing some great things. And with you kind of being like one of the, in my opinion, first like OG female financial experts, you're clearly pivoting a little bit, and not like pivoting far away, just I guess I would say like different work streams, almost like rooted in the same
Yeah.
thing but different like narratives or genre, whatever you want to call it. How has like that pivot been for you, into new business ventures, whether it be like personal, professional? What has that been like?
It's been exciting. It has been exciting. I've done a few things over the course of like operating my Fab Finance, but my Fab Finance is always been my baby, and I call it my bridge. And so, with it, I was co-founder and CFO of a fintech startup, that we decided, like, after we started working on our minimally viable product, that it just didn't make sense and we scrapped it. But as far as things I'm interested in, yes, finance has been my thing. I'm the co-founder of Can Inclusive, but I'm very silent, actually non-active. They're doing a great job, and that is a company that we created to drive diversity and inclusion in the cannabis space, and continues to consult and host workshops and events, and partner with brands to make sure that Black and Brown voices are heard in this new cannabis frontier. I have my personal brand. I'm an art collector and really looking forward to getting into educating people on art as an asset when the time makes sense. But my business, I'm actually pivoting into government contracting. And so before I became a personal finance expert, I worked as a community outreach manager, doing education campaigns and community engagement around foreclosure prevention throughout New York City. I worked on city plans, throughout the city of Miami, worked on strategic plans for universities. And my background, like, I'm really I'm a un like undegreed anthropologist in all honesty, and I love doing that work. And so I'm moving that love and passion into government contracting with all the experience we have with MyFab Finance, hopefully continuing to address socioeconomic inequality, but in a way that allows me to address it at the policy angle and from the government agency angle, rather than like this is where we are now. Like let's work on this systematically. So that's where I'm transitioning, and I'm really excited about it. I'm a policy nerd. I have a master's in policy, urban policy and affairs. My undergrad is public administration. I really did just fall into MyFab Finance and finance because I became what I needed. And now I feel like I'm getting back to the ethos of who Tonya is and how Tanya's career started by doing this work.
I love it. And don't you just love how it's all connected? Like you might not know in the beginning, but God will he has a way. There's a way.
Yeah, you might not know because now I look at all these brand campaigns and I never thought I'd be a finance influencer. Like never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would become a finance influencer. But the brand campaigns that we strategized and done and executed served to my past performance needed for the government contracts that we're applying for. I facilitated trainings for Sony. I facilitated trainings for like the Women's Small Business Bureau. Like I facilitated all these trainings as well as have done projects with Fannie Mae, healthcare.gov, Chase, like General Motors, all these major companies. All of that it lends to the work that I'm transitioning to. It took time for me to get quiet, and I definitely want to encourage anybody who's listening to this and feeling like they want to transition their business, they want to transition their life, is really get quiet and ask God, what do you have in store for me, and what makes the most sense for this next level of my life that I'm moving into. This is what I want to experience. What is the best way for me to do this? And just get quiet. It took me about a month to come to that conclusion. And I was thinking about a few things. I was like, no, that doesn't really feel right. That doesn't really feel right. That doesn't make sense. And it took me about a month to like really be like, bingo, this is it. And now it's just been like, I don't want to say easy because we haven't got our first government contract yet, but we have I have an amazing mentor. A lot of people just like, even today when I was flying, my friends sent a resource like, hey, check this person out. She helps people with their certifications. This is like, it's flowing. It's flowing. So ask and listen.
I love it. Alignment. It's clearly aligned and it's
Hmm.
happening. Good for you. I'm excited. I'm over here rooting for you from the virtual sidelines. Okay.
Thank you. You know what's funny is like you gotta be careful what you ask for because I was telling my significant other the other day, I was telling him that I was like, next year I don't think I really want to be on social media. Like I spent the past 10 years being highly visible, build businesses on social media. Like I wanted to be optional. Like I don't think I'm gonna get on. And then the next day my account got hacked. Like
Whoa.
Facebook, Instagram, everything gone. So, yeah, be careful what you ask for in your transition because I'm like, oh, you don't want to be here? Okay, cool, yank. And I'm not saying God took my Instagram account away, but what I'm saying is I've been operating all these years without any issues, and I will fix my mouth to say that. And it's like, okay, all right, you don't got to worry about us no more. It's gone.
Watch
So I
this.
am, yes, literally watch this. So I'm working to get it back. Um, but it just be mindful. Just be mindful. Things can happen swiftly.
That's crazy. So you still don't have it back?
Mm-mm.
What? I also hate how
It,
slow they move, but I'm not gonna go in on Meta right
and
now.
just trying to get in contact with somebody over there. And also the issue has been like there's been so many layoffs over there.
Mm.
And so it's like everybody I reached out to, this like I knew somebody that got laid off. And I was like, I knew somebody that got laid off. Luckily, just networking, that's just the power of having a network. And I do want to say that if you are a content creator of any like if you are a content creator or you make your money based off of like social media, establish relationships with people over there because I like the channels that like the automated channels like the help desk pages and everything that I've been going through with Instagram have not been helpful. But I finally connected with somebody in my network who is just like, okay, let me put this in. How do we do this for you? So if you are a content creator, establish relationships with the folks that you have your platform on. Go to their events if you need to. Join their communities online and like be vocal in those communities. Establish relationships because you never know if your account is going to get compromised, and if it does, you need people who can like really help you get it back. But especially when you make money off of it, like we got brand campaigns going up. So definitely make sure that you have relationships over there because it's powerful.
That's real. Very, very solid advice for sure. We're gonna have to keep an eye out for, and I'm by the time this goes live, you will have I'm speaking it. You
God
will definitely
willing.
have it.
Yes, yes. I was like, and we going into a holiday. You know, people don't like to work during the holiday. Lord. Oh
Exactly.
gosh.
It's gonna work out. It's gonna work out. Well, before we truly wrap things up, I also this is another question I just like to ask my guests. What inspires you, or what is currently inspiring you in this season?
It depends. Like I feel like I always get inspired when I watch Beyonce Homecoming. Like I just always get inspired because she works so hard.
Wait, I do the same thing. Or either I'll go watch like it was like a Made in America video. It's on
Yes.
YouTube.
Oh my God, Kyla. Like I will sit there. I've watched her homecoming performance so many times. I know what song is coming up next. I know like how the beat's gonna drop. And I'll still sit there like, go, be like, go, and like just walk away so motivated because she's unmatched. Like Beyonce is unmatched with her work ethic. So I get inspired by Beyonce if I'm being completely honest. But also my son, like the life that my son has is amazing. And no, I'm not the richest person. But my son lives an incredible life. And every day I look at his face and his joy, and I'm inspired to go get it so that he can maintain that life. So I'm inspired by him. I'm inspired by my ancestors. When I had a speaking engagement in Mississippi a few years ago, and it required me to drive from Tennessee to like southern Mississippi and driving through cotton fields. And I stopped and got out the car and it's like wanted to pay homage to my ancestors. But I thought about like they worked so hard, not by choice. Um, and they survived so that I could be here and work by choice. I am responsible for making as much out of this opportunity that I have and this life that I have because I am so blessed because of the people before me. So that inspires me as well.
I'm like 100% aligned. Like literally, you name. I mean, I don't have a son, so just kidding. But Beyonce, ancestors, like I'm on the same page. I just think about even like when I do become a parent, like the types of stories that I want to tell or the way that I want to educate. Like I do not want that to be lost on my family at least at all. And I think
Yes.
even thinking about the way that like the education system is changing and curriculum is changing, I'm just like we can't lose that. And so I loved hearing you say that.
We can't. Yeah, my son, like even today when I was at the airport, I was talking to the gate agent who was really friendly. He's like, yeah, I've been getting some young people in here who are ballers. I had this young woman, she made $160,000 a year. I was like, I made $1.2 million last year. He was like, what? And just like he looked at my son, he's like, man, your mama is tough. And like I want my son to be like, yo, my mom was a force. I remember this video of John David Washington, which is Denzel Washington's son, talking, and they were talking about his father, and they try to kind of like minimize his mom's accomplishments. And he was like, no, I'm about to like spell them out for you guys. My mom is this, she's this, she's this, she's this, she's this. I want my son to be able to have that same opportunity. I want him to be like, my mom did this, my mom did that, my mom did this, da, 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 and I'm this, and I'm that, and I'm this, and I'm that. So he is definitely my primary inspiration. And before I had him, he was my inspiration too. I just knew that when I became a parent, I wanted to be like, I wanted to experience motherhood on my own terms, and I wanted to give my children a life where I didn't have to depend on them. Like I was solely there. Like I just don't need anything from him. A thank you is nice, and a hug is nice, but I really want him to be to just embody his life as he was designed to. And it's all been by design. Everything I did up until then was for this.
Beautiful. So beautiful. Okay. Well, before we truly, truly wrap, any other projects that you're working on that you haven't mentioned? Anything that you want the people to plug into to kind of watch, from the sidelines? I want to make sure we are truly like rooting and supporting you on.
Yeah, thank you. So MyFab Finance, we still have financial education, information, advice, still have the platform, still have the team running it. If you're listening to this and you're like, no, I really cared about her financial information, you can go to yourmoneypersona.com and take our money quiz, and that will help place you into the resources that we've created for people based on where they are in their financial journey. Whether you're at the beginning or you're nearly an expert, we have resources for you. So that is yourmoneypersona.com. On my show, Going From Broke, just released its third season. It's executive produced by Ashton Kutcher, I'm co-executive producer of the show, and it is us helping people get out of debt and create financial solutions based on their problems. And we work with everyday people who have a variety of different financial issues. It is totally free on the Crackle network. So you can watch it online or you can watch it on your smart TV. All you can do is download Crackle. So that's available. And I encourage people to go stream it because it really is a powerful, powerful show. And yeah, I mean, I'll drop my Instagram handle, God willing, by the time y'all hear this, I have it back, which is Tonya.Rapley. Go look and see if it's back. Tonya.Rapley. And there I'll definitely be sharing more about my art collecting journey and art education. I don't think I'll be sharing more about the government contracts and stuff until I have my really have my nails in it. But you can follow along. You can follow along and see how things are going in my life.
No, we definitely, I will be, and I'm going to make sure they will be too, because those are all going in the show notes. The show, the your money, I might take the your money persona quiz today. So
Yes.
if you see my submission come through, I just want to know. But no,
Okay.
thank you so much for joining us and being on the show today. This was such a great conversation. I'm like, I'm like, how do we do this again? But anyway,
Yes,
seriously,
yes,
thank you. Thank you
yes.
for being here. Listeners, thank y'all for listening in. Until next time, we'll chat soon. Bye.